Presented by Church Tech U, it's the ProPresenter Show. On today's show, what were the new features in ProPresenter in 2022? Hi, and welcome again to the ProPresenter Show. This is the show where I teach all about ProPresenter. My name's Paul Allen Clifford. And before we get started, if you like this kind of content, tutorials, etc., go ahead and join the over 10,000 other people that have liked, subscribed, etc. to this channel. So 2022 was a big year for ProPresenter 7. It was released in 2020, but 2022 really saw a lot of new features added, some of which had been things that users had wanted for years. So I thought that we would take a look at those just to refresh your memory on what all shipped in 2022. So let's head over to my computer and we will take a look. So here we are in Pro 7. This is actually Pro 7.11, and so I thought that we would take a look at some of these new features. The first one was actually released in January with not 7.8 as I'd normally expect, but with 7.8.3, and that was network link. So just to refresh your memory on what network link is, if we go into ProPresenter, then settings, because I'm on Ventura. If you're on an earlier version of macOS, it should be preferences. I can't remember if it's settings or preferences in Windows, but either way, you go there and then you go to network, and then you'll notice that we have this right here, and I don't have another ProPresenter computer up right now, but if I did, I would be able to select it here, and then unlike Master Control Module from ProPresenter 6 and earlier, which was an extra charge, this is included in. You have the ability to go back and forth between which computer controls ProPresenter, which computer controls the other ProPresenter. So that's a cool feature. And in my testing, it looked like you did not have to have a registered version to control the main version of ProPresenter. So you could have a laptop that, say, the pastor has up in front and is controlling the message slides, but only the message slides. And if the pastor wanders away or forgets the place in the message or whatever, you can take back over control to get to the appropriate spot in the message notes. So that's a really flexible feature that they added in 7.8.3. With 7.9, they added two more control features. And the first one was one that had existed for a while, but not officially, and that is the ProPresenter API. So back in the day, some great people like Dan Owen, who's an Australian and really big member of the ProPresenter users community, he reverse engineered what the API was by, basically just snooping on the network while he controlled things with the remote app. Then use that to make a module in Companion. Well, starting in ProPresenter 7.9, there is an API that enables you to control ProPresenter from anywhere on the same network. And that is a cool new feature. Sure, you can do things like make your own web page that has different buttons on it that do different things in ProPresenter. And if you go back to that tutorial, I show you how to do that exact thing. But you could also use what was called ProPresenter Control. And if we go to, I think it's under View. Let's see, ProPresenter Control. It will take you to a web page, which of course opened on my other screen over here. So let me drag that on over, and then I'll show you what it is. So there it is. The ProPresenter control screen. Notice that this is on the same network. I'm using the local host here. So you don't even have to be connected to the internet to use this. And you can do things like change the look in ProPresenter, activate macros, change between items, etc. Also change preferences, see what's on the announcement layer versus what's on the presentation layer, and the list just goes on. One thing that this does not include is next slide, previous slide, and that's because originally this was called ProPresenter Producer Control. So the idea was if you had someone else that would help out with the other tasks in ProPresenter other than the one main task of switching slides, that's what you could do here. And since this is just a web page, there's no reason why the person that is controlling this, you just change out localhost, change this to the IP address of the ProPresenter computer, and then this could be an Android tablet, it could be an iPad, it could be theoretically a phone or Windows machine if you're on a Mac, any of those things, and it can control ProPresenter. So that's a cool new feature that they added as well. So those are the features in ProPresenter 7.9. The API enables this, but there are other cool things that you can do with the API, and go watch my tutorial on that if you're curious about that. Next we had 7.10. Now 7.10 had a lot of features, but you've got to pay attention to which revision of 7.10 that you went with, because some were better than others. There were a ton of bug fixes released as part of the 7.10 group of revisions, from 7.10, 7.10.1, 7.10, all the way to 7.10.4. So probably the best of those is the last two, 7.10.3 and 7.10.4. So if you want any of these features, you're probably going to want at least one of those two. So for that, we have playlist templates. So I can create a new playlist from a template. Notice that I've already created some of these. Let me show you what one of those looks like. So I've got this, just has a placeholder for opening announcements and a placeholder for the song. And I could make it more advanced doing it that way. Click on this to add a new presentation to fill in this placeholder. I can import a new presentation to fill in this placeholder, or I can just do a search to fill in this placeholder. Any of those, and that goes for all the elements in a template. So you no longer have to take a previous playlist that is basically what you want, it's the skeleton of what you want, and switch out elements. Instead, you can have a playlist template that you start off with every time that you create something, and then go from there. So that's a cool thing. Another thing is that we also had, if I can find a playlist here, let's go to this one. Yeah. And maybe this one right here. Okay. So we have had the timeline feature for a long time, but if you click on this now, we had some additional things added. So not only could you change the slide, not only could you change the media and have that all synced up to audio, you also had this feature right here where you can add other things in, like actions, to have those happen on the timeline exactly when you want them to start. You can always manually start the timeline, having recorded it, but you also have this feature right here where you can import or you can get a control signal from SMPTE timecode, which sounds a lot like those of you that are old like me that remember when you would dial up to AOL or whatever. That's the way the timecode signal sounds. So that can be sent from another computer, say one running Ableton, or I think MainStage would do it. Think Logic would do it. I'm not as much an audio guy, so I could be wrong about one or more of those, but I'm pretty sure Ableton can. And then you can have that go on automatically based on the time code it gets from other software, even outside of the ProPresenter computer. And that would just be going, it's just an audio signal. So that's a pretty simple thing to get into ProPresenter. So that is that feature as well. One other thing is starting with ProPresenter 7.10, you could add, if I can find a video, where did I put it? Okay, so if you have a video, you can right click on that, go into the inspector, which is redesigned, and you have this, markers. So during a video at a specific time, you can have a marker trigger an action or a macro. So an example that I've given is, let's say that the pastor wants to show the Passion of the Christ, and in the instant that Jesus died, the lights go black. Well, instead of counting down to your lighting person, you're going, okay, ready? In 3, 2, now, no, now. You know, just doing something like that, you could have it happen automatically where you send a MIDI command at exactly the right time to the lighting console and have that happen. So that's another powerful feature that they have added in ProPresenter 7.10, and you can access those markers here. There's a little marker thing here, so if I were to play this, notice that I have the marker there, and I can click here to go to a marker, add a marker at the playhead, or just open the inspector and edit the markers. So a lot more flexibility of what you can do in ProPresenter 7.10. Now, 7.11, which is the beta version that has just been released in the last couple of weeks. In fact, by the time you're seeing this, it could be that it will be the full release. Don't know exactly, but it could happen at any time. With that, we have the ability to do some cool things. So I've got this background here. So let me right click and go into edit slide. And if I click this, and instead of filling the box with a color, I've got a couple more options. So let me remove my picture-in-picture so that I can show you the background effects. So we can either do a blur, and along with the blur, we also have the ability to desaturate the video, or invert. So that basically turns it into a negative, like a film negative, if you're old enough to remember those, or you've seen them on the internet. So it can do that. So let me add this background blur, and I'll show you that you can tweak the saturation. So let's turn it all the way down. So just in this box, it's going to be black and white. And I'm going to turn up the blur a bit, so it's going to be a blurry black and white version of the video that is on the media layer. So if we go to show and we click on that, it's kind of hard to see. Here, let me go full screen, I think. Yep, it'll do it. So you can just barely make out. I made it a little too blurry, but you can see that line that starts here is there. So that's a cool new feature that they added in 7.11. The other thing is in themes. So if you go here, notice these are all thumbnails instead of the lists like you had before. And if it's you've got recent themes, so if you know you used a theme but you're not sure which one, you can go, okay, it was actually one of these that are the 3 most recent. And notice too that when I mouse over, this particular theme has multiple sub-themes. So over here in the original part, as I mouse over, it changes the thumbnail to each of the sub-themes. One other thing is right here. Did you see that? That's a background. You can now attach backgrounds in themes. So that's something else that you can do in ProPresenter 7.11. So whether you click this or not, that is whether the background is applied. It's not just what it looks like here on the theme. So that's another really cool feature that I love in ProPresenter 7.11. So those are all the new features. Well, all the major new features. There were several other little ones like, did you know if you tap the tilde, it will go back and forth between the regular slides thumbnail view and the easy mode. And if you double tap, it will stay there. So you can press and hold the tilde just for one slide because maybe one is harder to read, or maybe you want to see the background and you want to go to the other mode, or double tap to get there permanently. So that's another cool feature that they added as well. If you like stuff like this, you'd like my ProPresenter 7 Quick Start course. So head on over to TDM.fyi/pro, the number 7, quick. Give me your name and email address, and I will make a login for you for free. Until next time, this is Paul Allen Clifford from TrinityDigitalMedia.com and ChurchTechU.com, reminding you to go out and change eternity.